Kevin Durant is going to be out at least 1 week with his apparent ankle injury, and with less than 10 games left in the remainder of the season, are the Phoenix Suns playoff hopes, or play-in hopes, I should say, cooked? We're going to talk about all that, plus other teams that futures may be cooked in different ways, and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host here, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And Kevin Durant's going to be out at least a week with the ankle injury that looked pretty nasty when he went down for the Phoenix Suns. The problem and the unfortunate part of this is that the Phoenix Suns are down 1.5 games right now to the Sacramento Kings for that 10th and final play-in spot. Them, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Phoenix Suns were all kind of hovering over which of those teams were going to get the final play-in spot, which one was going to wind up on the outside looking in. This now increases the chance that the Phoenix Suns just aren't probably going to make the play-in tournament. And what does that mean for the future of the Suns? Well, that's why I say that the Suns are probably cooked, right? Mainly because the Suns they don't own their own picks outright, right? So that's a problem there. On top of that, like, we already know that they have the pending thing right now with Kevin Durant reportedly being on the market this summer, and the Phoenix Suns are prepared to move him. The only thing that was going to bar that reportedly was a deep playoff run by the Phoenix Suns. That's not going to happen, especially if they don't even make the play-in. So when it comes down to it, is that the Phoenix Suns sitting in place right now, their second tax apron team. They're still very restrictive in the deals they can do. Bradley Beal still has a no-trade clause. As of right now, they're going to have the Cleveland Cavaliers pick, which is not going to be great. They have the least favorable of that between Cleveland and Minnesota's pick. Minnesota, Cleveland, and Phoenix's pick. All three of those teams going to have pretty damn good picks. Pretty low picks in there. They have pretty solid seasons. And so where it comes down to is that, unfortunately, I mean, this just does not benefit them at all. So right now, the Phoenix Suns sit in a place where, and I've said this many times before, they have to make a hard line change with their franchise, in my personal opinion, right? I think that not only moving Kevin Durant, I think that they would also be smart to shop Devin Booker. Not because Devin Booker's a bad player or anything, but I don't think that they have a realistic timeline to put something out unless they get something great back, surprisingly enough, for Kevin Durant. But more than likely, we know that Houston's probably going to be circling them, as well. Reportedly they're prepared to make a big offer. Fred VanVleet's contract's going to get them a large part of the way there. But even if they do get Green back or something like that in that trade, there's not a lot of future prospects that they're going to have something out there to where they're putting something together that is going to be a contender right away, right? So the Phoenix Suns are a cooked franchise. Their playoff hopes this year for the rest of the season are cooked. They don't have really good draft prospects. Doesn't mean they can't get a hell of a draft pick. We've seen some good players come out before, but that's pretty much cooked. So when everything's said and done, like, the Phoenix Suns, if they miss out on the playoffs, that's going to be a pick that goes to the Houston Rockets, that actually maybe the Rockets do trade back to the Phoenix Suns in pursuit of Kevin Durant. Maybe it's something like that could happen, which is a possibility. We've seen teams value getting their own picks back before, so maybe that's something that ends up helping with that. But overall, like, the Phoenix Suns have the most difficult schedule left in the NBA. They're going to be missing Kevin Durant. Their opponents have a combined win percentage of 60%. That's how difficult the rest of this way is for the Phoenix Suns. They are a cooked franchise. And the Phoenix Suns are going to be a cautionary tale for every team on why going potentially into the second tax apron is so detrimental to your team and your franchise. If you're not 100% sure that you're going to be a contender, and I'm not to say that they didn't think that they were when they made those moves, but you got to be really, really sure of what you're building and where the place that your roster is in before you go into that second tax apron. And so the Phoenix Suns are a cooked franchise. They may be the most cooked franchise right now in the NBA because of their payroll, because of the second tax apron, because of the lack of draft picks. Like, all those things combined really put them in a bad place. Like, yeah, they have their own pick next year in 2026, which may be a reason why even more that they should be looking to move and be bad unless they feel like they can really build something sustainable. Because, I mean, outside of that, 2027 pick going to the Cleveland Cavaliers, 2028 pick Could go to the Brooklyn Nets, right? Like, so it's just so much up in air when it comes down to that. And the Phoenix Suns are just in a place, man, where they spent a lot of draft capital. They spent a lot of money to put this roster together, and it's just not in a place. And then when you look at the other cooked franchises, right? Even the Philadelphia 76ers, with the injury to Joel Embiid, the injury to Paul George, they're not nearly as cooked as the Phoenix Suns, mainly because they have Tyrese Maxey. They have Jared McCain. They have their own first-round pick, right? They have those things that couldn't matter in a case like that. And so the direction of their franchise is kind of, they could pivot to go younger, and they have their own assets if they choose to do so. Like, the Phoenix Suns pick is top 6 protected. And so it's definitely going to, probably be in that area, so they keep it. And, next year it's 1 through 4 protected, right? So either way, like the Philadelphia 76ers are in a much better place because they do have some young talent. They do have some things that if they do choose to pivot and move a Joel Embiid, move a Paul George, which it may be difficult to move, but I don't think they're as cooked as the Phoenix Suns, so to say, just because of other things. They aren't near the second tax apron, right? So they still have that flexibility to aggregate salaries, take multiple players back, use their mid-level exception, even if that's something that plays a part into it. They're $30 million below the first tax, the second tax apron next year, right? And so it puts you in this place where you're looking at these teams and just how cooked they are. Like, the Phoenix Suns are one of the most cooked franchises in the game of basketball, man. And it's really unfortunate, not owning your own first-round picks, not owning that could be detrimental to a team. But to already not have your picks, to already be in the second tax apron, to have a roster that clearly doesn't fit together, and it seems like they don't like each other, all these things aggregating for the Phoenix Suns just put them in a situation where their franchise is cooked. And it's going to take some prayer. It's going to take some tough calls. It's going to take a lot of that to put you in a place where you can get your franchise out of this place of being cooked, right? Now, from them to another franchise that is trying not to be cooked is the Memphis Grizzlies, right? That we talked about it. We dropped an emergency episode when they moved on from their head coach and Taylor. And unfortunately now that's kind of putting a highlight on what's next, right? Because now you have the new head coach taking over. Reportedly, Ja Morant hates the Memphis Grizzlies offense. He's one of the orchestrators of that offense. And even the new head coach in Memphis has already said, like, he doesn't have time to implement what he wants to do. So, Ja Morant, who reportedly was unhappy not only with the offense, but is starting to become unhappy in Memphis. And Memphis now has to make sure that this next stage that they take their franchise in is one that it not only suits Ja Morant, who, some people have made the conversation, is Ja Morant even still the Memphis Grizzlies' best player? Is that now Jared Jackson Jr.? Is that something? But, the Memphis Grizzlies need to tread lightly here, right? We already saw a team in the Sacramento Kings that moved on from a coach, right? And that was played a part in De'Aaron Fox's desire to get out of Sacramento with the way that was communicated. And some things were even blamed on him, right? So I'm not saying that the Memphis Grizzlies are in that place now or Ja Morant is necessarily in that place, but says this. League sources say Morant in particular was upset that last summer the team let go of one assistant with whom he was particularly close, who worked with two-time All-Star more than anyone on the staff. This season, Morant worked more closely with LaRoche, a former trainer with individual players who was the first season as an NBA assistant, like Isalo, played a pivotal part in implementing the new offense. Morant played his entire career for Jenkins and remained supportive of the coach up until the end. Morant did not, however, like the new offense. He has played just 43 games this season, missing the most recent stretch because of a hamstring injury, while also dealing with right shoulder soreness. When he's been on the court, according to the league source, Morant has complained that the new scheme, which takes the ball out of his hands, removes the screens he likes to use as a ball handler to make plays. Now, again, I don't want to fearmonger or make this a bigger situation than what it may be, but it is something that they have to look at, right? They have to look at what they're doing here, because if you do have a disgruntled star on your hands, as we've seen in the NBA, that can cause problems that trickles down your franchise all throughout, right? And that is something that the Memphis Grizzlies need to really be trying to avoid in this situation, right? Their 60% win percentage, still a team that, that made this decision this close to the playoffs, which your head coach is already saying, I don't have time to implement what I would want to. And it puts you in another scary situation of exactly where are things going for your team, right? Where are things going for your franchise? What are you going to do? They've maybe now punted this playoff series. Now, We know that Ja Morant has missed a stretch of games, things like that. But the Memphis Grizzlies are another team that they need to start doing something to crystallize their future. And maybe that is something that they hope that this move and moving on from Taylor Jenkins was going to do. But we can't say that for sure, right? Like it seems like regardless of what was happening between the front office and the coaching staff, that there was something going on where they felt like this was the best move to make for the state of the franchise. It seems like weird timing. No, it is weird timing to do this less than 10 games out from the playoffs, where you should have did this at the All-Star break, or you should have waited to the end of the season. Doing it right here, right now, puts your players in a worse situation. It puts the new head coach, that even if this is an on-the-job interview, on-the-fly interview as far as for him potentially being the next head coach, it still puts you in a weird position there as well, because like he doesn't have this is a bad situation for him to take over. And what if he wins 3 games over these last 9 or 8 or whatever they have? That's not putting him in the best light of taking over the head coaching role. It's not putting him in the best place to get ready to gear up for a playoff series in a deep Western Conference when you've just taken over and haven't had time to implement what you would want to do. This whole situation by the Memphis Grizzlies just seems really, really strange. And like I said, the Memphis Grizzlies aren't nearly a cooked franchise, but it's going to be difficult not to look back at this decision to move on from the head coach and not wonder if this does eventually lead to this franchise or the direction being a little bit cooked and them having to change that. We'll see. Again, a lot's left up in air right now, but we'll see what happens, right? Last topic of the day before we get up out of here, Anfernee Simons, Simons with the Portland Trailblazers is going to be a hot commodity here in the offseason as far as trades, right? Brett Single says this, that he believes the trade talks surrounding Anfernee Simons will be picking up this offseason, saying the young guard is the main trade asset to keep an eye on in Portland. There have been plenty of chatter linking Simons to the Orlando Magic since he is from Florida and attended IMG Academy, which is south of the Tampa area. Another team discussed as a potential landing spot for Simons is Miami Heat, sources said. That's according to Brett Siegel again. Now, if this does come to fruition, right, a lot of people were surprised that the Portland Trailblazers didn't make more moves at the deadline, or really any moves at the deadline to kind of clear up that direction, gain more assets. The Portland Trailblazers could be a team that's completely open for business on a lot of their roster this offseason, right? Simons is definitely one of those pieces that could be on the move. Wouldn't surprise too many people there. DeAndre Ayton could be one that's on the move. Wouldn't surprise too many people there. Do you end up trying to move on from like Time Lord or anything like that? Those are other pieces that could as well play a part into this for the Portland Trailblazers. But they're going to have to ask themselves that tough decision, and we'll see what comes of it. But when it comes to the place that the Portland Trailblazers in, it should be no surprise that Anfernee Simons could be a potential hot commodity out on the trade market, I feel. But when you look at a lot of their roster and where they're going, like Robert Williams, are any teams going to be interested in him considering his injury history? You got Jeremy Grant down there, which I expected to be shopped at this year's trade deadline. DeAndre Ayton, if they decide to move on from him. Like, they have quite a bit of players that they can look to pivot from and be in asset acquisition mode. Now, maybe they don't. I thought the same thing about the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets end up holding on to most of their roster and keeping it together. But Anfernee Simons being a guy right now that could garner some interest out there. Like I said, it makes some sense. Anfernee Simons is, while not by any stretch of the imagination like an amazing player, even yet to show himself to be a star-level player, he is a bucket getter, right? And there's something to be said, especially a team like the Orlando Magic that simply need some scoring down there, right? They have the defense when everybody's healthy. If you can add Anfernee Simons in his three-point shooting with being a career almost 39% three-point shooter, that can help that Orlando Magic team with a lot of the shooting and creation that they are going to need as things go forward. So I'm not surprised to hear the teams that could be interested there. I'm actually, like I said, more surprised that we didn't see kind of more aggressive activity from the Portland Trailblazers leading into this year's trade deadline. But woulda, coulda, shoulda. This is where we are now, and we'll see what happens when it comes down to it, man. But I think that Anfernee Simons being a name that's out there on the trade market could be one that garners a lot of interest, again, from certain teams when it comes down to it. Now, as far as the Miami Heat, right, like we talked about the Orlando Magic, we know that what they want, right? If you can pair Jalen Suggs and Anfernee Simons, that's a good, at least on paper, pairing from in a backcourt. Right now, a little small there at times, but I think when you look at Suggs and even how he grew as a scorer this year and with his defense, I think that that's something that's solid there. You look at the Miami Heat, right? That's the kind of more difficult. Are you going to do a Tyler Hero, Anfernee Simons backcourt? I think that both those players kind of serve the same places while not really covering up some of their things. I kind of think that Tyler Hero more so needs a 3-and-D wing down there. Too bad they didn't have a veteran one there to kind of help with his game. And I don't know if Anfernee Simons is going to be kind of that seamless fit. They either need a point guard or they need a 3-and-D wing. They ideally need both, right? So I think those are the things that play a part into it for the Miami Heat if they become interested in Anfernee Simons. But don't overlook a different team coming involved, right, and being more aggressive. I think a lot's going to be told with some of the teams that strike out either in the play-in, right? They get eliminated earlier, they get eliminated early in the playoffs, and they could be pivot looking for something, a shot in the arm or whatever that is this offseason, and Anfernee Simons could offer that. So let me know what you guys think down below. Who are some of the teams that you think make the most sense for Anfernee Simons as he's expected to be available out on the trade market this offseason? Let me know that down below. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything basketball related. Now, see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.